Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you. It's late September and
Wake up, America. I think I got something to say to you. I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America too. Wake Up America Radio with Dr. A and Lou Bell is not a safe space, so enter at your own risk. You will be exposed to the truth, and we will endure the consequences. Now, rest assured, Dr. A will not try to put his brain into your head. I will, however, motivate you to think and to use the analytical part of your brain that very few people want to use because it requires actual effort and actual work. Lou Esposito was on the line. As you know, she is my producer, my sidekick, and I gave her the honorary Tactical Naval Aviation call sign Wench. You know why, folks? Because she doesn't take crap from anybody. Lou, are you there?
I'm here. It's also because I'm Viking.
You are, and I've seen some of the stuff you've been putting up on Twitter lately, some of those pictures. It goes back and forth between a pirate wench and a Viking, and I love everything I see from you, usually, on Twitter. But I got to tell you, based on the action yesterday on Twitter, I learned some things I didn't know. Apparently, Dr. A looks like Pat Robertson's son.
No, you don't. That's
what I was told. A couple of Twitter trolls were going after me. They said, you look like Pat Robertson's son. You only know a few big fancy words. And they told me that Ted Cruz's wife wouldn't give me the time of day, even if I bribed her with some cold, hard cash. Lou, I had no idea that was what I was like.
Well, first of all, they haven't seen some of the dates that you have had, and I have seen some of the beautiful women that you've been out with. They probably could care less that you're an American hero, which you are, and I know that you're too humble to admit that. But the other thing is that you don't look like Pat Robertson's son. I'll go ahead and say that. I bet you do not look like Pat Robertson's son, period. No paternity test needed.
I thought to myself, I got two choices here: block these Twitter trolls, or coerce Pat Robertson into taking that paternity test.
Yeah, no, just block them.
I had no idea that Twitter could be so helpful with self-realization and personal assessment, wench. Okay.
No, it's not helpful at all.
Well, folks, I want you to listen and understand. Dr. A is now on the radio. He can't be bargained with. He can't be reasoned with. He doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And he will not stop ever until the truth is revealed and the lies are dead. What do you think of that, Lou?
I can attest to that. That is absolutely the truth, and I have I've learned about the not bargained with, and you're hard to handle.
Well, our topic
and it's my
today,
job to handle you, and it's a difficult job.
Our topic today, and probably for the next 2 weeks, maybe three, it'll be a 3 or 4 part series, but it's very necessary to the leaders out there, to the listeners out there in our audience, to learn the truth about what's happening in the United States and the impending collapse that we are up against right now, this precipice that we're on. And so we're going to teach people about the topic of cultural Marxism. And one thing that people don't understand is today, Lou, the Democratic Party is basically being led by this obscure communist named Antonio Gramsci. The full implications of a socialist worldview cannot be ascertained in a country dominated to some extent by capitalism. Socialists, Lou, like their kissing cousins, the communists, are nothing but thieves. Two-bit petty thieves.
So Debbie's being handled by a man.
Well, they live off the capital, the earned income of others. And when that capital runs out, like Margaret Thatcher said it would, what do you have? You have Cuba or North Korea. Mm-hmm. You know what, Lou? Socialists, here's an analogy. Socialists are like termites. They are indiscriminate in their choice of wood to satisfy their voracious appetite. By the time you recognize that termites have invaded your house, your home, it's often too late. Termites leave the form of the piece of wood that they consume by only chewing out the heart of that wood. Socialism and Marxism, communism, pick your brand, can be compared to a termite infestation. It's happening right now. The forms of freedom are left intact so that the underground work can go on unnoticed. Those who see the remaining forms have no idea what is going on inside. They're happy. Socialism steadily extracts, how should I put this, the nourishment from a society by continually eating away at its host. And we talked about this last week, when the loser parasites in America suck the host organism dry, which is those people that work for a living, everybody dies. Rulers in this country gain and maintain popular support through the tactic of taxing and spending. What do they say? It's in the name of the people. In short, by promising the voting public a share of the government's confiscated revenue, these rulers are able to purchase the votes they need to stay in power. Because a significant number of people receive benefits much larger than their contributions, that is, larger than what they pay in taxes, they continue to keep this ruling elite in power. People like Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney never recovered in his campaign for president for actually saying that.
He told the truth, and what he said was the truth. You know, while socialism does its destructive work at the economic level, there are other termites, Lou, that are at work on the cultural side of life. Now, I mentioned Antonio Gramsci. He was the co-founder of the Italian Communist Party. He was a cultural termite extraordinaire. Most people out there, even if they don't know Marxist theory, they know of names like Marx and Lenin, Stalin, but few people have heard of Antonio Gramsci. What was essential for Gramsci, and this was in a great book by a guy named Malachi Martin, it's called The Keys of This Blood. What was essential to him was looking for ways to Marxize the inner man. We're going to discuss that as we go through this cultural Marxist 2 or 3, 4-part series, so people can understand this, how to put it in layman's terms, or really make people understand this theory. Only when you Marxize the inner man, according to Gramsci, could you successfully dangle the utopia of the worker's paradise before his eyes to be accepted in a peaceful, humanly agreeable manner without any violence, revolution, or bloodshed. When it came to tactics, Antonio Gramsci broke from orthodox Marxism, as does cultural Marxists. They break from Marxist theory. They reinterpret it. While Gramsci remained a committed Marxist all his life, he believed that a different method, if you will, was needed to capture the Christian West.
So first, what was the traditional method?
That capitalism would build up this grand economic superstructure and then collapse of its own weight, because the proletariat, the workers, would be so alienated and oppressed, they would get so upset, they would rise up and destroy capitalism with this great revolution, and then there'd be this workers' paradise.
Okay.
It's never, ever happened.
So, so therefore he broke from it. How?
Right. And so the big question that you should ask is, what did Gramsci perceive to be the greatest obstacle in advancing a Marxist communist revolution? As a realist, he knew he was knocking the Marxist head, if you would, against the bulwark of Christian culture, which pointed unceasingly to something beyond man, larger than man, and outside of man's material existence and cosmos. While he never saw his vision come to a realization or fruition, he understood, this is Gramsci, how the Christian bulwark could be and would be eventually undone. And it had nothing to do with violent revolution and the uprising, the universal uprising of the proletariat, which we just talked about. In his mind, pluralism would have to be defended to bring communism to fruition. Marxists, in his teaching, must join with, and we'll discuss this as we go through this series, Marxists, he said, must join with women, the poor, with those who find certain civil laws as oppressive. This new Marxist needed to alter the Christian mind, to turn it into its opposite in all its details, so that it would not be merely a non-Christian mind, but people would have an anti-Christian mind. This meant getting individuals and groups in every class and every station of life to think about life's problems without referencing their Christianity and the laws of God. Does any of that sound familiar?
Oh, it sounds really familiar. It definitely sounds familiar.
This process was to be done by quiet and anonymous revolution. Everything must be done in the name of man's dignity, in the name of man's rights, and in the name of his autonomy and freedom from outside restraint, from the claims and constraints of Christianity above all. Gramsci's methods are alive and well today in the Democratic Party and in much of Congress, Wench. Bernie
And even
Sanders
in some of our churches, and they call it social justice.
Right. So what is economic justice? There's another term, economic justice. That's ridiculous. All these terms are part of political correctness, which we'll talk about. That's the number one tool in the arsenal of cultural Marxists. But here's my question. Are Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton simply useful idiots of the cultural Marxists, or are they loyal followers of Antonio Gramsci and his innovative ideas about how to bring a communist revolution to fruition? Now, a great deal of attention, and you know this, you use this all the time when you deal with your Twitter trolls, a great deal of attention has been given to Saul Alinsky and his rules for radicals. Alinsky, Lou, was more of a tactician. The more impacting ideologue who has influenced modern-day economic and social theory is Antonio Gramsci. It was also obvious that such goals, like most of Gramsci's sort of blueprint, had to be pursued by means of this quiet, anonymous revolution, which we just mentioned. No armed or bloody uprising would do it. No bellicose confrontations would win the day for these Marxists, called Marxists. Rather, everything had to be done, again, to reiterate, in the name of man's dignity, man's human rights, and in the name of his autonomy and freedom. Again, freedom from the claims and constraints, most of all, of Christianity. Now, Gramsci's strategy is being taught in every major university in the United States, and most likely neither the professors nor the students really know this. And you know what, Lou? Today, it is the worldview of nearly every Democratic candidate. Do you believe that?
Yes, absolutely, and I don't think that they're the useful idiots. I think that they are the loyal followers and the leaders, and that the people who follow them are the useful idiots.
I agree with you. Now, before we get into the meat of this first Cultural Marxism show, you want to take a break now, or you want to keep talking? What do you want to do? You're the producer. You handle me.
I'll tell you when we need a break.
All right. Let's talk about cultural Marxism, folks. Cultural Marxism, I usually define it as the destructive criticism and the undermining of all the institutions of the traditional Western civilization and those values and principles that underpin that Western civilization. Convincing the parasites, the losers, and the weak-minded people in society that they are actually innocent victims, victimology. That's victims in their plight. That is a key variable to the success today of cultural Marxism. Now, Lou, once this psychological ideology infiltrates and totally possesses the requisite number of individuals within those masses, I believe, and I teach my students, it becomes an unstoppable force for communist revolution. First, this so-called communist theorist identifies the main culprit, the culprit that is causing the predicament of the innocent, the downtrodden, the underprivileged people within the masses. And then that communist theorist promises them that once they are entrusted with absolute power, meaning military, political, judicial, economic, educational, and media, every source of power that exists, once you give that to them, when they hold the reins, they will avenge those innocent, oppressed people in society. How will they do that? By exacting an ultimate and a well-deserved revenge against their much-hated nemesis. But you know what, Lou? It is indeed a smokescreen. It's a deception. It is a facade. Lou, it is a total lie. Why? Because once the communists possess absolute power, they begin a reign of terror against all people in the masses. Look at every communist revolution in the several states that have brought it to fruition. The communists, look at your history, learn from history, folks. The communists brutally purge and murder millions of innocent individuals in order to instill a gripping, controlling fear within the masses. Now, since 1917, when we had the Bolshevik Revolution, about 140 million people, Lou, have been murdered in several different nations in the name of communism. In their minds, the means justifies the ends, and it solidifies their totalitarian control. As you know what, Wench? Cultural Marxism is the undergirding foundation that propels political correctness in American society today. What do you think about that so far?
Well, I think you're right, and I think it's really dangerous because when you compare socialism to our democratic republic, they're about as alike as night and day. They couldn't be any further apart. So the more we embrace socialism, the more we lose our republic.
Please don't embrace socialism. Trust me on this one subject.
Well, it's being done. It's
not by you and me.
Not by you and I, but by, like we said, Mitt Romney lost his bid for president. A lot of that was based on the 47% comment that he made. Well, 47% theoretically of our country is embracing socialism. And even more, probably even more than that, because they're voting Democrat and they're voting for these social programs and they're voting for socialism, whether or not they're taking part in the system. So a lot of America is embracing those ideals because they are useful idiots, or they have been programmed to let go of those Christian ideals and those Republican, with a little r, ideals, and embrace those socialist ideals without realizing what they really are. Now, I'm going to tell you we need to take a break. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
All right, I'm ready.
A reading from the Book of Beaker, Exodus 2, Electric Boogaloo, the apocryphal text. Upon hearing the command that he, Moses, had been called upon to lead his people out of slavery and into the promised land, the son of Amram fell upon his knees and pleaded, "Who am I that should go to the Pharaoh and bring my people to the promised land? O my Creator, how shall I lead my people?" And the Lord said to his servant, "Moses, unto you and to all men I have provided 3 gifts, and with them you shall have the means not only to lead your people, but to create for yourselves a life of honor, strength, and character." And Moses cried, "Heavenly Father, what are these gifts, and how shall I use them?" And the Lord said, "The first of these things is your brain. With it you shall know your world, and make plans to best act within it. All that you see you shall process, and with that thou shalt plan. And with thy plan devise words that will help rally a people to your cause." Moses asked, "Heavenly Father, what can be more important than this? The seat of intellect." And the Lord said, "Without balls, brains are for naught. Balls are the driving force of action. Without thine sack, the brain is merely a cloud without rain, watering not your fields, stillborn in the sky. Without these, your harvest of intellect will never be reaped." And then Moses said, "A brain to plan and balls to act? What more would I need to lead my people to the promised land, O Lord?" And the Lord God replied, "Moses, any true leader, from those as vast as nations to those as small as families, needs heart. I say this, even if a man needs only to lead himself, he must act with heart. Heart gives wisdom to the mind, helping it decide amongst the myriad of possibilities which course of action is best. Without the heart, the mind is a cold and selfish thing. It is a glorious wine without lips to taste or hands to share. And think of thine balls as an oxen. Without the yoke and the farmer to guide it, the oxen would merely trample the very earth it was meant to plow. Without heart, This gift too is useless, a flood instead of a gentle rain upon your fields. This is the power of heart. Remember this, O son of Amram. A brain without balls or heart is a man who stands behind a podium, speaking eloquent words while the world burns, drawing lines in the sand that his balls won't defend. It is a man lacking the heart to see. Although his actions may indeed increase his own power, it comes at the cost of the very nation he pledged to lead. I say unto you, a man such as this is no leader, and will only draw to him the heartless, the self-absorbed pseudo-intellectuals and eunuchs. And lo, balls without brains is a man who rambles angrily and incoherently, lacking the intellect to stay consistent or focused. It is a man lacking the heart to realize constant attacks and childish petulance from one in a position of power is the height of arrogance and stupidity. Yea, the man with balls lacking brains or heart is a childish bully who believes they are brave, but is too stupid to realize that in reality they are a coward. And I say unto you, a man such as this is no leader, and will only draw to him those of empty hearts and empty minds. And a heart without brain or balls is a man, a good man, who for all his character lacks the vision to decide on a decisive course of action, and the capacity to act upon that action if it existed. This is a rare man, who in the service of his people can be an unparalleled value, just not as a leader. Moses knelt quietly, pondering on what he had been told, acknowledging the triune of nature of man, brain, balls, and heart. And in knowing that his servant finally understood, the Lord said unto Moses, Rise and go forth, lead thyself, lead thy people. This has been a reading from the book of Beaker.
I looked all over, so how can it be? Here comes the wrecking ball, swinging at me.
K98 Talk is continuing to expand its lineup. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level, or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org.
They know I mean well and smiling this hell if they try. They open their mouths, only hatred spews out with their
You know, Lou, just after Vladimir Lenin successfully completed his communist revolution in Russia that he led, those ruling Bolsheviks created an institution called the Communist International, Comintern is what they called it, because they wholeheartedly believed what Karl Marx taught, that the entire world would eventually transition and be consumed by full-blown communism. In Marxist theory, this is mankind's unstoppable ultimate destiny. A critical component that would instigate this transformation to communism was the annihilation of Western Christianity, again, which Antonio Gramsci theorized was the primary obstacle preventing a communist new world order coming to fruition. Again, Gramsci argued that the Christian faith had tainted members. That's the adjective used. He said it had tainted members of the so-called working class, the proletariat, as Karl Marx referred to them in the West, Western civilization, and that the West would have to be de-Christianized through the obliteration of all traditional Christian values and their concomitant institutions. During their elongated trek through society, communist revolutionaries would have to, he said, infiltrate and fatally corrupt our traditional families, our schools, our churches, our entertainment industry, the media, civic organizations, science, literature, and the communist revolutionaries would actually have to rewrite human history. The winners in civil war write history, and usually what they do is rewrite. Stalin was famous when he took over after Lenin died for rewriting human history to make him look so much better than he actually was in real life. Everything, Lou, originating in Western civilization, according to these cultural Marxists, was to be viciously attacked, ridiculed, and mocked. Blame for all of the world's problems. Listen to me. Blame for all of the world's problems was to be assigned to the failings of Western culture in general and capitalism, the capitalist economic system in specific. Now, for a construct, they called it cultural pessimism, this construct of cultural pessimism, citizens would eventually, because this mind rape onslaught that was coming at them continuously from the cultural Marxists, citizens would eventually begin to despise their own nation, despise their own society, despite having experienced a tremendous amount of personal success while growing up within the confines of that society. Now remember, if a lie is repeated often enough, it becomes the truth in the brain and in the irrational thought process of weak-minded, I call them loser, parasite people. And Hitler's minister of Nazi propaganda was Joseph Goebbels, and this is what he taught all the time during the Nazi reign there in Germany. Instead of a disgruntled working class being the ultimate instigator of a communist revolution, which is what Marx taught in all his writings, marginalized groups would be the societal catalyst that would lead the way to communism. Alienated groups like activists, homosexuals, feminists. I hate that term, feminists. What does that mean? What about a segue? What does that mean, feminist? What's a feminist, Lou? Please educate me. What is a feminist?
I couldn't tell you. You know, I really couldn't. I wish I could. I wish I could explain what it really means. I think it's another, just like you said, they twist words and they change words. And Locke, actually, my favorite philosopher, talked about the use of words and the changing of the meaning of words and how people would use that to try to control the majority. So the minority uses words and twists words, changes meanings of words to try to manipulate the majority. And I think the feminist is a really good example of that. And I'm actually glad you asked me, because it gives me a chance to talk about Locke. So in theory, or technically, a feminist would be someone who is supportive. The suffrage movement could be called a feminist movement. Well, that was about the women's right to vote. Now it's about, and it's why so many of us call them feminazis, it's about women actually controlling the thoughts of others and making the majority of people believe and think the way that they do. I don't agree with everything a traditional feminist has to say. I believe that I can take care of myself. And if I'm not happy with what I'm getting paid, I'll either find another job that pays me what I think it should, or I'll go to my boss. I'll do a good enough job that I can go to my boss and say, you're not paying me as much as you should be. Give me a raise. And if he doesn't, I'll leave. And that's the way capitalism works. And if feminists don't like it, they can move to a socialist country.
I saw a feminist when I was back in graduate school wearing, I think she was a feminist, wearing a shirt that said, "A woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle." I just thought that was so crazy. I mean, we were put on this earth to need each other, and I think
that's a really good point, to need each other.
Yeah.
And a feminist not only believes that, they start from a point, it's kind of like a narcissist. They start from a point that they believe that a man doesn't need them, therefore they don't need a man.
Well, I just every time I see that feminist, I just what really is a feminist? I sometimes think it's mostly lesbians, but I don't know, and it's none of my business what they do. I could care less.
Well, no, I mean, some of them may be, a lot of them are not. A lot of them are, I mean, you know, not to be disrespectful, because I'm not a disrespectful person, but a lot of them are useful idiots that have just bought into this idea that women are oppressed. In order to be a feminist, to be a modern feminist, you have to believe that women are oppressed. I'm sorry, but I'm not oppressed. Do you see me as an oppressed woman?
No,
Try it.
Yeah, haven't you grown up with white privilege? I mean, like me, I'm privileged to be white, I guess.
No,
I don't know.
I'm in no way oppressed, and if you think that I am, try it. Try to oppress me, and I'll show you that it ain't that easy.
Code Pink, are they feminists?
No, they're actually anti-war. Maybe they are feminists, I don't know, but they're anti-war.
All right. Back to these alienated groups. Again, to foment this communist revolution, the societal catalyst would be these marginalized or alienated groups, again, like the activist homosexuals and the feminists. Black militants, Black Lives Matters, would use political correctness and cultural terrorism to wage war against white males, heterosexuals, Christians, capitalists, and all things that were founded on traditional Western values and principles and morals. Now, of course, the so-called victim groups would be vigorously defended. They would be exalted as the public debate would be stifled and suffocated. You can't say anything. Now you got these I tell my students all the time, even when I was back at UCLA a long time ago, that it's not a safe space on this campus. It's not a daycare center. You're here to be exposed to ideas, and we will have a wonderful conversation about them. I'll moderate the discussion, but let's listen to each other and learn from one another. And that's what you're supposed to do to develop your rational thought process, your analytical thought process when you're in college. Most professors don't do that anymore. What they do is try to put their brain in your head. And I don't do that. I don't do that to you. I don't do that to Stacy or Juju Dombrowski, JD, or anybody. I present the truth to you, and hopefully you will understand it's the truth, and then come to either you verify what you believe, or you'll re-examine stuff that you thought was the truth, and maybe now it's not the truth. Now, does any of this sound familiar in today's American society, Lulu?
Oh, sure. It sounds familiar from some, not just today's society, but from, 15, 20 years ago when I was in school. I had some great professors who didn't try to put their brain in my head, but I had a few that did. And, I wasn't their favorite.
Lulu went to school at Meredith College. See, I didn't tease you.
No, you didn't.
She's a Meredith girl.
I am a Meredith girl, and if you don't know what that means, you should research it.
I remember the first time that you did an interview with me. I was at your mercy. All those hard questions you asked me. You didn't even let me know what the topic's going to be until 1 minute before we went on the air. But I had done my research on you and found out what a Meredith girl was and can art and all that stuff. And I think
my favorite saying about Meredith girls is you can always tell a Meredith girl, but you can't tell her much.
You can't tell her much of anything. Yeah. Hopefully that impressed you when we started talking. I don't know. Hey, you know what, folks? Trust Dr. A on this one subject. In the long run, communism never works. Communism always fails in human society. And it destroys the lives of everyone along the path to its eventual collapse. But you know what? Good men and good women must still boldly stand up with courage, face and aggressively defeat this communist enemy. As true conservative American patriots, we must prevent the all-consuming misery that is ever present in a temporary communist dictatorship. You know how a communist dictatorship works for the short period of time? The Soviet Union, it was like 74 years, 1917 to 1991. So if my UCLA math is correct, that's 74 years. And it was because they had the guns. The government had the guns. You didn't have any guns. So they had you at the business end of their rifles and their pistols. And if you didn't do what they told you to do, they simply shot you. And Lenin, Stalin all the time during his 5-year plans would personally go to the agricultural sector or to some of the shops, the industries, and line up the people like it was going to be a great event. He's going to inspect them like you see these guys do all the time. They go to these different countries and they line up and they inspect the uniforms. He simply shot every 5th guy in the line, dead, right there in the head. And it motivated the rest of those guys to work and really get back and do what they're supposed to do to keep the communist nation going. Otherwise, communism doesn't work because nobody wants to work. If you get everything for free, why should I leave my porch or my tennis court or my golf club and go work if I'm going to get the same amount from the government by working or not working? Where is the innovation? Where is the desire to go work? It is stripped away. It's gone. And that's the only way a temporary communist dictatorship works for a while. And they just had that, what's that knucklehead in North Korea, Kim Jong-un?
Yes.
He basically told his people the other day, you better get ready for 5 years of misery, hardship, and famine.
Meanwhile, he's gained 75 pounds in the past year.
Well, yeah. Well, the communism isn't for the communists. It's for you. It's for the people.
Exactly. There's plenty of food in North Korea. He's just eating it all.
Well, he will tell his people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and make these sacrifices. And then out the other side of the mouth, he's threatening the United States with, he's going to launch these nuclear missiles at us, and destroy Washington, D.C. in one felt move. And nothing can be further from the truth. He doesn't have the ability to do that. Trust me, people, he does not.
He doesn't have the ability to do that. I mean, think about the distance that a missile would have to travel to get from North Korea to Washington, D.C. That's all the way around the world, and there's only 2 countries that really have that ballistic missile capability, correct?
The former Soviet Union, Russia,
and the United States,
and the United States do have those capabilities.
That's right. We have those types of ballistic missiles, but they don't exist anywhere else.
Well, we've got the nuclear triad, which your favorite guy Trump didn't really quite understand what that was. And as a naval aviator, flying off the carriers, I used to be a nuclear delivery pilot. I was qualified to do that. And the nuclear triad is the airplanes that can carry the nuclear weapons and deliver them, the ballistic missiles that come from the submarine-launched ballistic missiles, which my dad was a submarine officer,
right?
And then the hard-based silos that are strategically positioned around the United States and can launch missiles from those hard-based silos. That's the nuclear triad, and we have that. And
those are the long-range ballistic missiles that actually leave and re-enter the atmosphere.
Right.
Right.
And then that's the new thing. We need to, in the future, talk about an EMP. I know you like that stuff. You're a big proponent of national security. And
yes.
EMP is something that a lot of these third world budding nuclear countries like the favorite one of Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett, Iran, would really love to do to the United States. And we had an actual successful EMP attack on the United States of America, Lou. You might kill 80% of the population of the United States. 80% people will die because there'd be no electricity. There'd be no access to food.
But that kind of EMP attack is really difficult to carry out.
Of course.
Yes, that's not an easy task.
It's ironic.
They'd have more luck hacking our grids and taking them down than they would destroying them with the EMP, don't you think? Not to get off topic.
You see, folks, she segues to hacking because she just loves the anons and all
cyber warfare is it's one of my favorite topics, but I did not mean to get us off topic. Keep going. Sorry.
No, I like that. We've had a couple shows where we talked about the anons and what they can and cannot do, and I find that so fascinating.
Some of them do really good work and shouldn't be demonized.
No, if I sounded like I was demonizing, please.
No, you don't. But some people do. But some of them do very good work.
I tell you what, I get demonized all the time. I was protecting Hammy, my buddy, naval aviator, the E-2 pilot, the other day on Twitter. Somebody was really being ugly with him. I don't understand that. I view that more as entertainment. I know that you and.
But some people are on Twitter just to demonize, and I think that that's where we get back into, I'm gonna, and I know you've got some news that you want to talk about in the last segment, so I'm gonna ask you to kind of wrap up this discussion as we go into this. But I think that there are a lot of useful idiots on Twitter, regardless of whether they are Trump supporters using Alinsky for Trump tactics because I believe that he's a progressive, or they're Democrats and they're the socialists and communists that we're talking about today, but they are on Twitter just to be ugly and just to cause problems. So don't worry about those people, just block them and move on, Doc, and
that's what I do.
Try to wrap up this discussion so we can go into the break and come out and talk about some news.
All right, again, to reiterate, as true conservative American patriots, we must prevent the all-consuming misery that is always present in a temporary communist dictatorship. In the United States of America, folks, it is not only our right to question the government, it is our duty to question the government. It is our duty to do so in order to protect our cherished freedom, individual freedom, national freedom, and to ensure the continued peaceful longevity of our democratic constitutional republic. The United States of America is indeed God's shining city set upon a hill. I believe that. We are the last best hope for all mankind. Who said that, Lou?
Ronald Reagan.
Yes, he did. I know you like Reagan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are the last best hope for all mankind, everywhere on this planet. If we collapse, I fear, I weep for the earth, because it'll be nonstop bloodshed all over the planet if we are, obliterated.
The planet would be a very dangerous place if we, A, are obliterated, B, lose our republic and slip into socialism or communism. Absolutely. The planet would be a dangerous place.
Dangerous place as it exists right now, but it'll be much more dangerous.
Much more dangerous. But you did segue very nicely into why I am a supporter of Anonymous, and it is their support for free speech and transparency in government and letting us know what government is actually doing and hiding from us. And not just our government, but governments around the world. And Dr. Arrington, I believe that we have some news to talk about that happened this week.
We do, and it wasn't a real big news week. We didn't have any elections. We're coming up on Tuesday, I believe. We've got a Wisconsin primary where it's a winner take all.
Leading.
Yeah, Cruz
He's
is leading
in the polls. Yeah.
Your boy Cruz, and
my boy.
I gotta see if I can call Heidi Cruz, see if I can bribe her into having lunch with me, just to prove those Twitter guys wrong. I don't know. You know what? I heard something that one of my favorite politicians in the whole world, I'm being facetious, Mrs. Clinton said the other day on the unborn. This is what she said: unborn people have no constitutional rights. Unborn people have no constitutional rights. Now, it's interesting because Mrs. Clinton herself had several abortions in her younger days before political consultants convinced her that being a mother would be very beneficial in her ongoing pursuit of political power.
Now, reference that material. Where did that come from? Don't say it on the air and not reference it. Where did that information come from, Dr. A?
I just read a book by Roger Stone about the Clintons.
Okay.
It wasn't. I read Clinton Cash too. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was by Roger Stone.
Okay.
In other words, Mrs. Clinton, to Mrs. Clinton, children are merely, how should I put this, props to be used or abused as she sees fit. And then, of course, in that book by Roger Stone, he said that being the case, since Bill Clinton is not fertile, this is coming from Roger Stone again, Mrs. Clinton hooked up with Webb Hubbell to have Chelsea Clinton.
You're kidding.
No. Did you not know that?
I haven't read that book. No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, you need to read it. Roger Stone. Mrs. Clinton cannot stand this guy. Huh?
Webb Hubbell, huh?
Webb Hubbell. Well, people go on.
Welcome to the gossip hour of Wake Up America Radio.
Yeah, or Webb Hubbell. Put them both side by side and tell me that's not her daddy. And Roger Stone basically said that and he knew them from way back that Clinton is not fertile. So that's what happened. Obama himself, I can't remember how many years ago this was, he made this statement. He said that he tries to teach his daughters, to do the right thing, but that if his daughters made a mistake in life, he didn't want them to be punished with a baby. A baby is punishment. You know what, Lou? In my humble opinion, abortion is abominable. It's an abomination.
I don't know who actually came up with it. It often frightens me to think of who let that cat out of the bag to begin with, and where the whole concept of that came from.
Margaret Sanger.
Well, she pushed it, but it wasn't her idea. It's been done for centuries. They did it. The prostitutes did it in Rome, or tried. So it kind of boggles my mind to think that someone came up with that idea to begin with. But it's one of those things where once the cat is out of the bag, how do you really stop people from doing it? It's unsafe when it is regulated. And when it's not regulated, when it's illegal, it's not regulated, it's even more unsafe. And this goes to Trump's stupid comment this week about women should be punished. And you can debate that all you want to, because if it's illegal, it's illegal. You break the law, should you or should you not be punished? That wasn't the stupid comment. His stupid comment was that we should go back to illegal clinics. That was the stupid comment. Make it illegal, but let there be clinics that do it that are actually illegal. So if they're illegal, there's no way to regulate them. So they're doing whatever they want to women. Women are walking in the door in potentially really desperate situations. Because sometimes one of Obama's children gets pregnant, one of his daughters gets pregnant. He sees it as punishment. Yes, that's horrible. But they're going to be okay because they have plenty of money and they could support a child. Some people get pregnant, right or wrong. I'd say it was wrong. But they could be in a really desperate situation. Having worked in nonprofit, I know that women get out of abusive situations and find themselves pregnant. And that is a really horrible situation to be in. And to look at a woman in that situation who wants to have an abortion and tell her that she shouldn't is a very difficult thing to do, even though my mother worked in crisis pregnancy and did it for many, many years. But they never really said to the women, no, you shouldn't do this. They offered them other options, which I think is the better choice. But Trump wants to take us back 100 years and actually make it possible to have clinics that are illegal where everybody gets punished and nothing is regulated and it's the most unsafe situation in the world.
I didn't hear that, but that is, to me, is just a ridiculous statement.
It is. It's ridiculous. It's fine if you want to change the law and make it illegal or set parameters for it. And I think that some of the legislation that was offered in Congress that didn't pass, with certain exceptions, were, for rape and incest and that sort of thing, were probably the smarter options to look at. But you just, Trump's comments were ridiculous. And for Obama to say that he wouldn't want his daughters to be punished with a baby, that is exactly what you were talking about, where with culture, and I know it's why you brought it up, it's exactly what you were talking about, where you change the language, you change the mindset of people, where children are no longer a blessing, they're punishment.
I think that American society in general is fast approaching a precipice of moral, intellectual, and philosophical bankruptcy, and that there's only two paths left for us as Americans to follow. We can evade the reality of the situation and act on a sort of a fanatic, blind range of the moment expediency and not daring to look ahead, wishing that nobody, specifically Dr. A and Lou Bell, would not speak the truth, and yet desperately hoping that someone will save us somehow, or properly identify the situation, check the premises, and discover the hidden assets and start rebuilding this nation. I think America at present is following that first course, as the intellectual leadership sort of has collapsed under this pressing weight of culture that has been indoctrinated by following this immoral philosophy of the Democratic Party. And there's rhinos involved in that too. They don't approach social problems, in my humble opinion, pragmatically. They look for ways to improve the situation. They don't do that, except if it's politically expedient for them and a means to a greater end for them personally in their power quest inside the Beltway.
And our republic was meant to be a system of compromise.
Exactly.
But you have the two extremes fighting over certain issues, abortion being one of them, where one side wants to see it eradicated altogether, and the other side wants to see it used as a form of birth control.
I think that if you look at Mrs. Clinton, who I loathe and can't understand, my sources still tell me she's going to be indicted. She made a statement that you really need to listen to the statement, because it's what the Democratic Party of today believes. They're no longer a Democratic Party, they're a Communist Party. She said this: "Let us be willing to remold society by redefining what it means to be a human being in the 21st century." What does that mean to you, Lou? Remold society by redefining what it means to be a human being. Are you kidding me?
It means she does not need to be president.
Absolutely.
I think that I don't know. I have another Viking friend that we're just ready to build a longboat and, gather all the Vikings up and just, take over the country and make people grow up. I found a great meme the other day that says, "Jesus loves you, but Odin demands that you grow the blank up."
I like it.
I mean, that's a great Viking meme, right? But really, people need to just grow the heck up.
Right.
Take responsibility for yourself, and people need to learn to compromise. I don't have to believe like you do. I don't believe that you have to believe like I do.
No.
I know that you're not going to believe everything that I do. If there's a happy medium for everything, and we can find a way to be happy, does that mean compromising our principles? No, but sometimes it means compromising our policy. And you can compromise on policy without compromising your principles. And that's what has gotten lost.
Last week we talked about Anger Incorporated, the Democratic Party. today the Democratic Party apparatus, Lou, feeds off of the entitlements of the welfare state, social workers, so-called university intellectuals, bureaucrats, trial lawyers, and government unions. They are all clients of big government programs that the Democratic Party and some of the rhinos promotes.
Now, what university was it this past week that demanded or asked all of their professors to take a pay cut so that they could offer free abortion on campus?
I saw that. It was UC Berkeley. I couldn't believe that.
Yes, Berkeley. That's right, UC Berkeley.
You know, the more the individual is given entitlements by the government, the longer the individual is kept dependent upon the government and that particular program which the Democratic Party promotes. The more you give people, the more you take away their liberty. If I want some temporary security and I'm willing to give my liberty to you, I am not worth the price of citizenship. I'm not ready to be put in the game to play. Take me out, please.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's what's happening right now.
And you know what? You can't have my liberty. My liberty belongs to me, and I'm not willing to give it to anybody. And with that, we got to wrap up the show. You want to say goodbye?
Well, you always say, let freedom ring, God help us. And please, folks, always speak the truth and then endure the inevitable consequences. That's the only way to live.
Absolutely. So you can catch us in WNJC Super 1360 out of Philadelphia on Tuesdays at 5 p.m., K98 Talk at K98Talk.org, and on Spreaker, and tune in on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock. And you guys have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. Say goodnight,
So long, folks. So long, folks.
So long.
If you want to work until you keel over, have less of everything in retirement, or give back more of your hard-earned money to the stock market again, then just ignore me. But if you'd like to protect the money you save, receive a steady, predictable retirement income, and enjoy financial security for as long as you live, then listen to this. You can download a free report that reveals the wealth-building secrets Wall Street and the banks don't want you to know. You'll learn how you can get guaranteed growth, safety, and real prosperity without risking your money in the Wall Street casino, and how to get the money you need when you need it, simply by asking for it. This is the best way to have a 100% secure retirement and know your money will last as long as you do. To learn more about this method and to get your free report, go to 29security.com. That's the number 29security.com. 29security.com. Go to 29security.com.